proud to present Kevin
Comptoir. Yes, ma'am.
And we just want to say that it's sponsored by the Northern Essex Community College. And enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, thanks for having me today. I'm going to be jumping around. I'll be back here a little bit. I'll be out front. I've got some visuals. I have some video clips. I have lots of different music that I want to play for you. And what's the whole point of us being here today? What's the whole point of this discussion? Well, our music is in America. Our music is probably the most elaborate, most eclectic form of music that the world has known. And why is that? Well, it's really the presence of one of the most horrible things in the world, and that is slavery. Unfortunately, it was slavery and the introduction of the African American, or the African into America, that made the American music so beautiful as it is. And what am I going to try to show you throughout the next hour or so? I'm going to try to show you that the drums and the banjo, which came from Africa, are an instrumental part of American music. I'm going to show you that the double entendre, which is the idea that we sing one thing but we really mean something else, is an integral part of American music. One thing that I won't really talk about because it's a public library is the existence of the N-word in American music. We'll kind of skip that one this time around, but that one's all over our music. All you have to do is turn on the radio and you can hear it. We'll talk about how the African used expression and music to deal with the horrors and the hell that slavery is. And the most amazing thing that I want to point out to you is that the African American continued to change the music. Every time a white man would come and adopt that music and make it their own, the African American would then make a new music. Or if a certain type of music became popular, the African American would then make a new music. So it was always this process of inventing all the time. Well, it goes back to when they were slaves. When they were slaves, they had to invent everything. Their culture was taken away, their language was taken away, their religion was taken away. The family traditions, everything was taken away from them. So what did they have to do in America but create everything anew? So throughout generations, the African American has created something anew. If you look at Greek music, you look at Russian music, you look at French music, you look at Spanish music, it's all the same throughout centuries. American music is not that way. American music evolved. Unfortunately, it evolved because of the existence of this. Unfortunately, it evolved because we had slavery. But the fortunate thing is that it's the most beautiful music. All the music that came out of America, including African American music, is the most beautiful music ever. So those are the types of things that I want to point out to you, is that it's the existence of the slave and their desire to create something new that basically leads to all American music. Now, there's been a lot of studies about American music. For example, Miles Mark Fisher did a pretty good study of African American spirituals and basically determined that the African American spiritual is a combination of a lot of different things, especially rhythm. It's the rhythm that the African brought from his home continent that really made up African American music, such as also religion, stories, events, and also European stories are important to African American music. We know that the djembe, or the djembe, however you want to pronounce it, is an integral part of African American music. And there's many different visuals and pictures and images that show the djembe, or show the drum, as an instrumental part of American music. And of course, you know the drum is basically used everywhere. This is a drawing. Hi, come on in. This is a drawing of the djembe. This would be another image of the djembe. Actually, I have one of these at home. And when you, believe it or not, this actually comes from the Emperor of Mali back in the 13th century. And when they made this djembe, they would actually pray to the tree before they did it. We don't pray to trees when we make a house. We just cut down the tree and build a house. They actually prayed to the tree. So what does that tell you? That shows you that they understood the root of this tree. This is God. This is nature. This is Mother Earth. So they would pray to the tree, then they would cut it, then they would hollow it out, then they would kill a cat or something to make the skin. Thank you. And then they kill another cat to make the rope and everything else. Nowadays it's all synthetic, but back then it was all part of this incredible ritual that they used. And this is just to give you an idea of how extensive the Mali Empire was. And once again, the djembe came from the Mali Empire at around the 13th century. The second instrument, that's so instrumental to American music is the banjo. And what is the banjo but a djembe with a leg connected to it with strings? Really, because what is this? This is basically a drum, okay, with a resonator on the back. This is the same catgut that they had to kill. So the banjo and the djembe, or the drum, are basically one and the same, and they both came from Africa. I have this image here to show you how the banjo became sort of, shall I say, evolved out of the African American community, evolved into the white community. Here's an image from the 1940s, and here we have a happy little Caucasian family playing an African instrument. So once again, it gives you the idea that the banjo, even though it started in Africa, continued on to America. Heck, we even have green frogs that sing the banjo. Come on, can anyone sing me Rainbow Connection? Rainbow Connection. Or was it, it's not easy being green? So once again, those two are extremely important. Now, African music in America was important to the worker. Okay, the worker would use, or I shouldn't say the worker, I should say the slave, would use this music to keep in rhythm. Now, this particular piece is actually from Africa, and you can tell it's all based on rhythm. And it's a work chant. And they would use it to work. Now, music wasn't just used for work. Music was also used for prayer and for celebration. Here's a song called Knee Bone Bend. Knee bone, knee bone, didn't I call you? Knee bone, knee bone, knee bone, didn't I call you? Knee bone, knee bone, knee bone, didn't I call you? Knee bone, knee bone. Now, you notice what they're singing. They're singing Knee Bone Bend. Okay? Now, here's another example of double entendre. What's the knee bone bend? Well, what are they doing? They're clapping on their knees, right? So it's the knee bone bend. By the way, why are they clapping and using their legs and not a drum? The drum was banned, okay? The white man banned the black man from using the drum. So they're using their knees, right? They're playing on their knees, but the knee bone bend is not their knees. The knee bone bend is the bend in the river that they must cross over for freedom. So it's a double entendre. Once again, they're singing about the knee bone bend, but they're really singing about that river that they got to cross to get to freedom. So these songs are not only used for spirituality, for celebration, but also it's a double entendre. They're expressing how to escape. In the North, people think slavery didn't exist in the North. Well, slavery certainly did exist in the North, and the slave music that came out of the North was more spiritual and more religious. They had Election Day, they had Pinkster Day, they had various types of celebrations. And here's an example of a slave spiritual that came out of the North.
Down here, Lord, we know you. Down here, Lord.
Down here, Lord, right? So the Lord is up there, right in heaven.
Down here, Lord.
But down here, are we just down here on the earth? Or are they singing about something else? They're not just down here on earth, they're down in the south. They're down in the south. What's the south to them? Hell. What are they waiting on? To get out of hell.
Waiting on you. Grown, waiting on you. Can't do nothing till the Spirit comes. Cry a little cry, waiting on you. Cry a little cry.
Once again, I can't emphasize the importance of religion in the North. Northern slaves were taught the Bible. Northern slaves were taught how to read. Northern black free men were allowed to be preachers, and this would be just a drawing image of a black preacher. And if you notice something very interesting over here, you'll notice something very interesting over here, right here, and right here.
Yep.
White people. Okay, it's very unusual to see that, but it does happen mostly in the North. Now down south, it's a lot different down south. Okay? Down south, the songs were more about spirituality, but less of a religious sense, and more of a historical sense. This one's called Many Thousands Gone. And by the way, as we're listening to all these songs, I want to let you know that the song list is all up here. So after the presentation, if you're interested in some of these songs, you could make photocopies or write them down or what have you. So this one's called Many Thousands Gone. And it was mostly sung in Greater Virginia. You see, this is an image of George Washington. The masters in the South wanted the slaves to sing. Why do you think the masters in the South wanted the slaves to sing? Why do teachers want their students to sing? Why do parents want their kids to sing? A singing slave is a happy slave. A singing child is a happy child. A singing student is a happy student. So here's George Washington. This is just, imagine this in your mind. George Washington wants his slaves to sing. And if he hears his slaves singing this out in the fields, what is he thinking? Oh, they're happy because they're singing. But in fact, they're not singing because they're happy. They're singing because they're sad. It's like, where do you think the blues come from? The blues is, they're singing it because they try to get rid of the blues. It's not because they want the blues. So once again, this song, which is a spiritual, recreational type song, would be heard in Virginia. In South Carolina, this is one of the more famous songs that came out of South Carolina. And it's all about freedom.
Follow the drinking water, for the old man said, follow the drinking water. When the sun come back, when the first quail calls, follow the drinking water. When the sun come back and the time is come, the drinking water. The river's bank hits a very good road.
Does anybody get it? What is this song? That's a map. It's a map. They're actually singing a map on how to escape. And what's the drinking gourd? The Big Dipper. And what's the main star of the Big Dipper? The North Star. Follow the North Star. Where do you end up? North. And they're actually singing about the rivers you have to cross and the people you have to meet. And Peg Leg Joe will be there waiting for you. Who's Peg Leg Joe? The Underground Railroad. It's amazing to me that the white people are so stupid that they didn't get this. It's really amazing to me. But there it is. It shows you the wisdom of the black man. Now, Louisiana was very, very different. Okay? Louisiana was very different. Louisiana is especially known for Congo Square. Congo Square was where the slaves would gather. And they were allowed to gather in Congo Square. They were actually allowed to gather and play and perform and tell stories and communicate with one another. And Louisiana was unique because Louisiana had Spanish, and they had French, and they had Italians, and they had Jews, and they had Africans, and they had some Muslim traders, and they had Mexicans, and they had guards, they had pirates. I mean, they had everything in Louisiana. Kind of like New York today. New York even has pirates today, right? I think they call them Wall Street folks. But anyway, so Louisiana basically had everything. It was a mix of all kinds of different people. And I have a piece of music here that came directly out of the Congo. It's called Mish Banjo. And if you listen to it, you hear the drum, you hear the banjo, and if you listen to the lyrics, they're actually singing in French. Here's your djembe. There's another djembe here. There's your banjo over here. Mouchoir dans son pêche, Michi Banjo, cigare dans son gros la bouche. Oh, vous voyez celui-là de là, Michi Banjo, comment il est insolent. that we just looked at. We looked at the northern region, we looked at the southern region. Louisiana was the one region where they had more fun. Why were they having more fun? Because they were allowed to have more fun. They had more freedom to have more fun. And of course, this fun then leads to jazz, which comes right out of Congo Square, New Orleans. So the slaves in Congo Square in the 1810s, 1820s, 1830s, all the way up to the turn of the 19th century, this music, this fun music, eventually evolves into jazz. What are we gonna do? We gotta add some drums. We gotta add some trumpets, right? Some trombones, a few other instruments, and what do we have? We have a jazz band. Congo Square is famous. If you go down there, there's actually there's plaques and there's recognitions of the type of music that came out of Congo Square. Now, the slave spirituals that we're more familiar with are actually not slave spirituals. They're called contraband songs. And this is an example of a contraband song, Swing Low, Sweet Chariot. Well, first of all, it's obviously a double entendre, because what's the story? It's a biblical story, right? All right? But are they really singing about a chariot coming from heaven? No. They're about railroad. They want to be free. So they want the chariot to come and help them be free. Another double entendre song. Why do I call it contraband songs? Because during the Civil War, escaped slaves would join up with the American military, and they would sing these songs. And this was the first time a lot of Americans had heard this stuff. So they didn't call it slave spirituals, they called it contraband songs, because they came from the slaves who were considered to be contraband. And by the way, this is Paul Robeson. This is the singer. He's actually singing this right now. The 40s, like 41, I believe. Yep. And then I have another example of a contraband song, probably even more famous, Go Down Moses. And I want you to listen to the words to this song.
When Israel was in Egypt's land, let my people go. Oppressed so hard they could not stand, let my people go. Go down, Moses,
Way down in the deep south. Tell the slave master, instead of the Pharaoh, let my people go. I'm actually going to play this out a little longer. Because
said the Lord for Moses said, let my people go. If not, I'll slay your
firstborn dead, let my people go. I got to stop there for a second. Because didn't Moses say to the Pharaoh, if you don't let my people go, or I forget the whole story, but the firstborn, it was supposed to be Israel, but ended up being the firstborn of Egypt died, right? Because Egypt did not let the people go. The firstborn of Egypt died. Well, did America let the slaves go? No. And what happened? The firstborn of every house in America died. Think about all the men. 500,000 men died at war. Why? Because we refused to let the people go. And what did Lincoln say in his second inaugural address? He said, this war came because we deserved this war. Because of slavery, because of the lash of slavery. God gave us this war. That's what the song is about. It's actually about how God is going to punish America because they're not letting the slaves go. Oh my God, when I learned this, I freaked out. Way down in Alabama land. Let my people once again, the first time people had heard these, I shouldn't say people, the first time Americans had heard these songs was when the slaves escaped. But those were just the soldiers that heard them. When was the first time that other people had heard these songs, other Americans? Well, it really wasn't until the 1870s. And it was the Fisk Jubilee Singers. They were a group of singers out of the Tennessee. Thank you, Fisk University out of Nashville, Tennessee, which was founded in 1865. Now the irony here is the leader of this group is George L. White. I just love the ironies, and obviously they're black singers, and they were created as singers to try to make money for the school. And at first, when they went out singing songs, they would go out and they would sing the European-style songs. Boring, right? You look at their clothes, they're dressed like Europeans. Well, they're singing like Europeans. But it wasn't until one of the singers started to sing this. And then someone else joined in. And this was going on backstage. They were rehearsing and they were preparing. And so they're backstage singing this song, Steal Away, and the people out of the audience were like, hey, what's that? I want to hear that. Now when you think steal away to Jesus, yeah, but you're also stealing yourself away to a meeting, or you're stealing yourself away to escape, okay? So once again, that steal away has a double connotation. And another one of their first songs, the first spirituals that they would sing would be Deep River.
Deep river.
And this is what white America wanted to hear. They didn't want to hear African Americans singing European music. They wanted to hear African Americans singing African American music. And so they started singing these songs, and they got popular, and within 7 years they made $150,000 for the school, and the school survived because of the Fisk Jubilee Singers. And once again, think about this song, Deep River. He's singing about Jordan, right? The River Jordan. Is he really singing about the River Jordan? No, the Columbia River. That's the deep river. You cross the Columbia River, and you are now free. Of course, I'm talking so loud, I'm probably freaking out the people in the library, right? But that's okay. But that's okay. Now, W.E.B. Du Bois was an African American, shall we call him, philosopher, writer, academic, leader, helped founded the NAACP, whole number of things. He supported the idea of African Americans singing these spirituals. A lot of African Americans were embarrassed by these spirituals because it reminded them of slavery, or it reminded them of the days in which their ancestors were in slavery. But he helped encourage, W.E.B. Du Bois helped encourage African Americans to be proud of being African and American. He called it double consciousness. It's okay to be African and American. It's like me, I'm French Canadian and American. Okay, you can be Irish and American. Why can't you be African and American at the same time? And it was partly due to W.E.B. Du Bois that Africans started to more and more appreciate the type of music that they had. However, we've got to deal with slavery. I mean, we got to deal with racism. We got to deal with minstrel shows. Okay. Because the minstrel show also came out of slavery. And this is just an example of an image of a minstrel performer. This would be a white man wearing coal on his face to appear to be black. Very offensive, very insulting, but also very part of our heritage and part of our history. And obviously he's playing a banjo there. Now, the racism that existed partly came from this guy, Samuel Cartwright. And he believed in the idea of polygenesis, which actually he believed that the human race was not one, but a multiple series of races. And you see the type of, the book here is called drapetomania. It's actually, he called it a disease. It was, as you can see, it was the runaway slave syndrome. So I don't know about you, but if you were a slave, would you want to run away? Yeah, well, I don't think it's a disease. I think it's a desire, don't you? But the point is racism was extremely strong in America. Now, where did the minstrel show come from? Well, the minstrel show actually came from African Americans performing for themselves, okay, on the plantation. Why are the Africans performing for themselves on the plantation? It's their entertainment. We can turn on the TV. They can't turn on the TV. They can't do anything. So it's their form of entertainment. And what was a minstrel show? But look, what's going on? They're dancing, right? There's music being played. There's comedy skits. There's tricks. There's games. In other words, a minstrel show was a variety show. And what were they doing? They were entertaining themselves. And I actually have some pseudo-authentic African-American minstrelsy that was recorded by, my brain just went empty. Harry Belafonte. Harry Belafonte put this together. And I want you to listen to this because it really gives you a feeling that you're at a minstrel show. A real minstrel show from the Africans.
Gentlemen, be seated.
Of course, all the kids would run up and sit down. Ready for the show? Ready?
Campbell,
Yes, sir, Mr. Interlocutor.
I hear you've been seen driving a mule down the main street of this fair city.
That's right, Mr. Interlocutor. Sometimes I just get plain lonesome for the sight of a Georgia mule. I remember once I tried to teach a Georgia mule to pull a plow. That old mule got so mad he kicked me unconscious. When I come to, I didn't know if I was in Georgia or Alabama. I looked all around and I said, is this me or not me? Or is the devil got me? Was that a musket shot at me? As I laid here more than a week, that old mule do kick amazing. And I expect he's now grazing on the other side of the creek.
Hey, you might can teach your mother to sing and a possum to chase a hound dog. You can maybe teach a rooster to lay an egg or a rabbit to kiss a groundhog. But let me tell you what I know about you.
I had a mule, he was such a fool, he never paid no heed.
I want you to imagine that you're watching a Saturday Night Live skit. Because that's in essence what's going on here. Okay? You're all singing, and they're throwing stuff around, and they're playing the banjo.
They say an old mule is stubborn and set.
So I'm going to skip forward to that liar.
Oh, boy. Ain't no sense moaning for some gal 10 million miles away. With all the pretty women I see around this town.
Oh, Lord, here comes Pretty Boy with another one of them lies of his.
God's own gift to brown-skinned woman.
Yeah, he done latched on to every pretty gal in town to hear him tell.
Not all of them, just the best of them. 'Cause I ain't got time for the rest of them. Now let me tell you what just happened yesterday. I seen a teasing brown skin walking down the street. So I ambled up to her and said, "Ma, you sure is sweet." Lord, she paid me no mind with her head hung high. But still I know I'll get her by and by. So I walks on behind her and I asked her real polite, "Miss, can you tell me where I'll find a home tonight?" Still she paid me no mind. And she's moving on her way. So I cried, "Lord, lady, where can a poor boy stay?" Then I asked her to tell me if she knows a gal named Sadie. 'Cause if she does, I's her old friend Brady. 'Cause I don't know no Sadie, and I got a place to stay. But I wants to meet this lady, so I walks her on the way. Well, she took me home and made a pallet on the floor. And she treats me better than I ever been treated before.
Woo!
He's lying. He ain't met nobody.
Okay, now, you're all going, boy, this is the public library. What is he talking about, the public library here? Well, there's a reason why I wanted to play this particular segment. For those younger folks, there's there's a courtship going on, okay? And there's a man and a woman, and the man is sort of courting the woman. And the man is the one who's the aggressive here, okay? And I'm trying to be nice because there's children in the room. The man is the aggressive here. And don't forget, white people are watching these performances, and they're watching these African Americans be kind of aggressive with their women. And they're thinking, oh, these African Americans are oversexed. In fact, what's going on is the black men in the minstrel show are making fun of the white folk. They're actually doing what the white folks are doing. The white folks are always chasing after some new mistress or some new girl. Okay? So they're actually making fun of white people. Now, the amazing thing is, white people saw these performances, so, oh, this is great. So what did they do? They copied it. So white people are now performing these types of acts. They're dressed up just like the African slaves. They're wearing clothes like this, but they're putting coal on their faces so that they have blackface. And in fact, what are they doing? These white folks are really making fun of themselves. Right? So you have black people that are laughing their asses off at the white folk. Once again, those white people are stupid. It's truly amazing to me. Okay? Now, minstrelsy changed. Once the white man got hold of minstrelsy, it started to change, okay? Because what they started to do is they started to really overemphasize the zaniness. For example, I'll just give you some quotes. The shows in the 1840s were, quote, animated by savage energy. White eyes rolling in a curious frenzy. Dervish-like fury all night long. Violent exertions of frenetic dancing. Sounds like a rock and roll show. Or maybe a jazz swing show from your era. Maybe from the I don't want to insult you. Maybe a swing show from the 1940s or the early 1950s with all those crazy girls dancing and their dresses going high and stuff. Think about it. The savage energy of the minstrel shows are still around today. I don't know about you, but I just saw Lady Gaga do the Monster Ball. That was savage energy. Okay, you know, Lady Gaga. I think the younger folks, even some of the middle-aged folks know Lady Gaga. The idea is these minstrel shows, they continued on to today. Okay, and there are a number of different minstrel performers, and I'm gonna just give you just a couple of posters. From the minstrel performers. Now, we know the term Jim Crow. Okay, in fact, Jim Crow was not a law. Jim Crow was not a person. Jim Crow was a character created by Tommy Rice, a white guy. Okay, it was a white guy that went on a plantation, saw a crazy black man doing a crazy skit. He said, "Ah, I want to be just like him." So he copied that, called himself Jim Crow. And as you can see, Jim Crow's poor, Jim Crow is classless, Jim Crow's fiction. I want to make sure we all know that. Jim Crow is not a real person, okay? But he's classless, he's dirty, his clothes are ripped, okay? Look at his toes are even hanging out of his shoe over here, his toes are hanging out of his shoe over here. And this image of Jim Crow is portrayed by white people. And I want you to think, because white people portrayed black people as Jim Crow, as stupid, as oversexed, as illiterate, as uneducated, as silly, as zany. What did white people in the South want to do? Oh my God, if all the people are like Jim Crow, if all the blacks are like Jim Crow, what must we do? We must segregate them. So this idea, and we know what Jim Crow laws, they call them Jim Crow laws. It comes from this character created by a white man. Not a black man, but a white man. And of course, this Jim Crow character also became a song.
Jump, Jim Crow, jump, Jim Crow, how do you walk so slow like
That's the creator of Jim Crow, called Thomas Rice, or Daddy Rice. But here's Jim Crow. I want you to listen closely. Disney! I hate Disney! Do you know why I don't like Disney? Because Mickey Mouse was a minstrel character. Yes. The white face, the gloves. Mickey Mouse was a racist character, ladies and gentlemen. He's just been sanitized over the years. God, I love history. Now, Zip Coon was another character created by a white man. And here's Zip Coon. The tune is Turkey in the Straw. You might recognize it, okay? But Zip Coon is different. Zip Coon is styling. Zip Coon's got a nice hat. And he's got either glasses or a watch. He's got nice shoes. He's got nice clothes. He's a pimp. Now, these minstrel shows continued all the way up until, believe it or not, 1910s, okay? Virginia Minstrels was a hugely popular minstrel band. The Ethiopian Serenaders, by the way, none of these people were from Ethiopia, okay? I just want to, they're all from Europe, all right? But they're called the Ethiopian Serenaders.
It's over, Silky Blue Skitty is in love with me. I waited all the afternoon to take a cup of tea. What do you take now? Sugar, apple, supper, wild chicken, fruit, possible without any butter. Blossom of the gum tree, cootie on the stump. Blossom of the gum tree, cootie on the stump. Blossom of the gum tree, cootie on the stump.
And I want you to look at some of these faces so we can see them. Their eyes are wide open with savage energy. Look at that one. He looks like a zany man. So you're right in front, so I can't help it. Okay. Now, Christie's Minstrels, which was a hugely popular minstrel band, performed this particular song, Old Folks at Home. Now, this song was written by Stephen Foster. Now, once again, we have a white guy writing songs that people think are authentic black culture. Far, far from home. That old plantation. Are you kidding me? Hold on, I gotta stop this for a second. Are you kidding me? Longing for that old plantation? How can they call this authentic African American music? It's not. Written by a white guy talking about longing for the old plantation. But for some reason, when we hear these songs, we think, oh, that's African American culture. No, it's not. Here's another example. Oh, Susanna. See, I'm warping some young people now, because young people think these songs is great, they're all racist. That's the weird thing about it.
Well, I'm from Alabama with my banjo on my knee, and I'm going to Louisiana where I true love for to see. Where it rained all night the day I left, the weather it was dry, and the sun so hot I froze to death. Susanna, don't you cry.
Stephen Foster, same guy. Yeah. Okay, you're a slave leaving Alabama. Are you going to go to Louisiana?
Yeah,
it's kind of silly, huh? Wouldn't you want to go north, maybe follow that drinking gourd? Okay, once again, another example of non-authentic African American culture. Here's another one, Old Dan Tucker.
What if they wanted to go to
Congo Square? Now, the great minstrel tune.
What's that?
What if they wanted to go to Congo Square?
Yeah, but there's still slaves there, though. No, they're still. They may have. No, that's okay. They're given time to sing, but then they go back to work first thing dawn.
Are those that are close, old laughing and dancing with itchy rhythms for nearly yes, because down it's American dance song pattern.
I came to town the other night just to hear the noise and see the fight. The watchmen are running all around. Find old Dan Tucker done come to town. So get out of the way.
Old Dan Tucker.
He's too late to come.
He's too late to get his supper.
Old Dan Tucker was a nice old man. He used to drive our Derby Ran. He sent it whizzing down the hill. If I hadn't got up, he'd have been there still. So get out of the way for old Dan Tucker. He's too late to come to supper. Supper's over and dinner's a cooking. Old Dan Tucker just standing looking. Old Dan Tucker and I got drunk. Fell in the fire and kicked up a chunk. Fire coal got inside of his shoe. Lord, there's your honey, how the ashes flew. So get out of the way.
Do you want to hang out with old Dan Tucker? He's a fool. He's clumsy. He's lazy. He's just another example of Jim Crow. Once again, these songs, all these songs were performed by minstrel bands. They were white people dressed up as black people, inauthentically, with coal on their black faces. Now, it got even more intense by the 1850s. It got even more stereotypical. Look at his shoes. Look at how big his shoes are down here, for example. Okay? Look at the ridiculous, whatever that is. Look at his face. Okay? In other words, these are white people, once again, with blackface, creating an inauthentic character. Once again, by the 1850s, it became more stereotypical and more racist. Why? The South were defending slavery. The South were defending the fact that they had black people in slavery. So they created these characters, they created these performances to basically convince people that blacks should be in slavery. In fact, here's just another image of a very racist image of white folk in blackface. Uncle Tom's Cabin, which was a famous book, was actually turned into a play. A minstrel performance, a minstrel play. And guess who played Uncle Tom? Thomas D. Rice, the guy that created Jim Crow. So don't think that this play, Uncle Tom's Cabin, was an authentic interpretation of the book. It certainly was not. Now, Al Jolson, who some of you may know, was a minstrel performer, and Al Jolson actually performed in minstrelsy at the movies. Here we go. Oh, I'm sorry, technology, don't you love it?
I made you wait. I'm coming. I hope it's not like not late.
Look, it's Mickey Mouse. See his gloves? See the Mickey Mouse gloves? See him? Look, Mickey Mouse, Mickey. See him? I'm not lying to you, I'm really not lying to you. When I tell them about Mickey Mouse, they freak out.
That lady thinks the song
She does.
It's my Mammy I'm talking about. Nobody else is. My little Mammy. My heart's screaming, I tangled around. Mammy, I'm coming.
Now, this movie didn't come out until the 1920s, and it was the first talkie. But I wanted to show it to you here at this point, because this is how minstrelsy evolved. It was even being performed in the 1910s and the 1920s.
Don't you go in? It's a little baby. I walk a million miles.
It was the most popular form of entertainment in America.
Was that the movie The Jazz Singer?
That's correct. That's correct. Okay, now, just because we've got these crazy white people doing this crazy music, black people are still creating their own music, okay? Such as blues. This is what you would consider to be Mississippi Delta blues. And this particular singer here is Charlie Patton. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to zip through some songs so you get a feeling of the various types of blues music that existed at the time. Here's Mississippi John Hurt performing Frankie and Albert.
What time was this?
We could say that blues really kicked in the 1880s, 1890s. Of course, it wasn't recorded until the 1930s.
Yeah.
But this music was being performed down south and the Midwest and even in parts of the Northeast, starting in the 1880s.
Everybody knows.
Once again, Mississippi John Hurt. Another famous performer of this Mississippi Delta Blues is Robert Johnson, and this particular piece is called Crossroad Blues. Now this is authentic African American music. There's a different category called Piedmont Blues, and Reverend Gary Davis is an example of that with a song called If I Had My Way. This music is very folk influenced, and you can imagine why. It's because they were influenced by the Appalachian Mountains and the Scots-Irish who performed a lot of folk music. Here's Reverend Gary Davis.
Where Delilah, she was a woman, she was fine and bad. She had good looks, God knows.
Here's Little Delilah by Blind Willie McTell. Any Allman Brothers fans? There you go, right here. There's also a music called Memphis Blues. And here's a song called St. Louis Blues that came out of Memphis, written by W.C. Handy. This is W.C. Handy. And performed by Ethel Waters. Now you notice this blues is a little different. The music is more elaborate. Memphis was very unique when it came to the blues.
Feeling tomorrow like I feel today. Feeling tomorrow like I feel.
And there were also jug bands. This is the Memphis Jug Band doing On the Road Again. Any Grateful Dead fans? There you go. It's also a music called Texas Blues. Blind Lemon Jefferson with Black Snake Moan. Here's another example of a double entendre song that I do not think needs to be explained. Here's Blind Lemon Jefferson. And yes, he is blind. Another famous guy from Texas, Leadbelly. We know Leadbelly maybe from the Bourgeoisie Blues, where he moved to Washington, D.C. and tried to get an apartment. And they said, no, you can't live here because you're black. So he wrote a song called the Bourgeoisie Blues. But I know you folks will know this one. Yeah, absolutely. I'm here because of this song. It was the last song of the night. My parents danced. They kissed and they went home. Sorry, I didn't mean to embarrass you, young lady. One more song from Leadbelly. You'll recognize this. Any John Fogerty fans out there? Midnight Special? Yeah, these songs have continued on to today. So once again, there is an authentic music that's taking place called blues music that is going on at the same time that this minstrel stuff is taking place. Now, Leadbelly is considered to be a bad man. Okay, he was actually convicted of murder in Louisiana. He wrote a song, and the governor pardoned him. Pretty good. Okay, and Leadbelly was a bad man, but he became sort of part of a character known as Staggerlee. And Staggerlee is a huge story about a murder that took place in St. Louis, Missouri, back in 1890-something, 1891, 92, I'm sorry, 1895. It was a murder that took place in 1895.
He was born at the two men who gambling in the dark.
Who's Staggerlee? He's not Jim Crow. He's Zip Coon. He's the bad man, but he looks good. Okay? He's the bad man, he looks good. Who's afraid of him? The white man's afraid of him. What you think? This guy becomes Tupac. This guy becomes Mick Jagger. Right, you kind of get it now? This guy becomes 50 Cent. Kanye West. Notice I also put Mick Jagger in there, because it's not racial to be white or black. It's the bad man, right? Think of Mick Jagger waggering his stuff around. So the bad man is still alive today. Okay?
And he got it 44.
All right.
Till I'm gone
now,
to the barroom to pay that debt I owe.
We got to talk about jazz. Because once again, we mentioned jazz earlier that came out of Congo Square. But there's something really important that happened in 1894. Before 1894 in Louisiana, everybody was playing with everybody. Black people playing with white people, Creoles were playing with blacks and whites. Everybody was all mixed up, all right? The whites were technically trained. The Creoles were technically trained. And the blacks understood virtuosity. In other words, they could feel the music. So your black folks felt the music. Your Creoles and your whites understood the music. In 1894, they passed a law that said if you have any black blood in you whatsoever, you're now segregated. Okay. Any black blood whatsoever, you're now segregated and you're separated. Okay. And what did that do? That put the skilled Creoles, because now they had some black in them, now they couldn't be with the white people. The skilled Creoles are now playing with the improvisational blacks. And when you have that skill and you have that improvisation, what do you have? You have jazz. And one of the first jazz musicians was, well, one of the first to be recorded was Scott Joplin. And people like Jelly Roll Morton. Jelly Roll Morton actually worked in a brothel, okay? And he had a little peek hole, and he could look through the hole in the brothel. And the reason why the girls gave him extra tips was because he would play the piano really, really fast so the girl could finish up and then go to another guy. So he would get a lot of tips by playing really, really fast on his piano. Now, there's also what's known as urban blues, right? We heard rural blues, and this is considered to be more urban blues. And what we have here is Mamie Smith and her Jazz Hounds, first recorded in 1920. You'll notice, what have they done? They've combined the rural blues feel with the jazz, with the urban jazz sound. Ma Rainey did the same thing with Old Papa Blues.
Once I lived a life of a millionaire. Spending my money, I didn't care. I carried my friends out for a good time buying bootleg liquor. Champagne and wine,
Now, believe it or not, the first solo jazz musician was Buddy Bolden. He's the guy in the middle top left over here with the trumpet. He's the first, considered to be the first soloist jazz musician. But he went crazy. He literally went crazy, so he was never recorded. Freddie Keppard was another musician who could have been recorded, but he was afraid white people would steal his stuff. So he never actually recorded. Instead, they left it to the white folk. Okay? The original Dixieland Jazz Band. So a music that should have been recorded by black folk was actually recorded by these white folk. This is called Livery Stable Blues. And when people heard this, they were amazed. And they were also, where's this jazz coming from? What does this name jazz actually mean? Well, the rumor is it used to be a jazz band. Okay? It was a jazz band. And kids like you would go up and would cross off the J. So it became an ass band. So they changed it to jazz. That's one explanation. Another explanation is jazz it up. Jazz up the music. And so they jazzed up the music. Jazz is a euphemism for one of those three-letter words that we don't like to talk about because this mixed up. Of course, King Oliver introduced Louis Armstrong to America. And Armstrong actually took an old minstrel tune, Old Folks at Home, and look what he did to it. He jazzed it up. Billie Holiday was one of the first jazz performers to actually make a serious statement in her songs. This particular song was written by a Jewish man, named Abel Meeropol. It was a poem, and she turned it into a song. It's called Strange Fruit, Hanging by the Poplar Trees. It's about lynching. So if you're interested, you could take a look at some information on lynching in America. Believe it or not, lynching didn't become illegal until the 1940s. Now, things started to change. It changes when what? When white people take over. And we have Benny Goodman taking that jazz sound that came out of New Orleans and turning it into a dance band. Here's the most famous song by Benny Goodman. Sing, sing, sing. And what's the instrument? The drum. Where'd the drum come from? Africa. Can't forget about Glenn Miller. Get in the mood. And what's going on here? Kids are dancing. And how are they dancing? With savage energy. Where's that savage energy come from? The minstrel shows. Now, once again, we have that idea that as white people sort of take over the music, black people got to do something with it. So you got people like Cab Calloway with Minnie the Moocher. Once again, every time the white people sort of make up music popular, what do the blacks do? They create something new, something different, something exciting. Or John Coltrane, recorded in 1960, called Giant Steps. Takes jazz to a whole new level. Why? White people are making this music, they're making money, they're making it popular. So what does he do? He brings it to a whole nother level. Charles Mingus, Wednesday night prayer meeting, does the same thing. Once again, black folks creating new music. Now during World War II, the big band changed into a small band. Okay? Because the big bands weren't making enough money, so they changed it into a small band. And what's going on in America? A lot of things are going on in America. Kids reading A Catcher in the Rye. Kids watching movies by Marlon Brando. Kids watching movies by James Dean. Kids watching movies with songs that are rock and roll in them. Blackboard Jungle. Kids are also watching the Civil Rights Movement. And so what do they want to learn about? They want to learn about black music. So who do they listen to? Charles Mingus, John Coltrane, Billie Holiday, Louis Armstrong. But who gets famous? Right? I mean, come on, let's be serious. Okay? So Frank Sinatra gets famous, so as he's singing and getting popular, what do black folks do? They create new music. Like Rocket 88 by Jackie Brinston.
Chuck Berry.
You heard the noise they made, but let me introduce my new
Rocket 88.
Yes, it's straight, just one way. Everybody likes my Rocket 88. Baby, we'll ride in style, moving on along.
Music. As a matter of fact, a relished memory in my mind he was. And a good musician, might I say.
Now, I want you to watch this performance. First of all, he's full of what? Savage energy. Thank you very much. Okay. You'll notice his eyes. He's always doing this with his eyes. Okay. Now, this is in the mid-50s. Who do you think's watching this? Who do you think's watching his legs?
Elvis.
Elvis, thank you. Wait till Elvis rips him off. Right? Wait till he does his duck walk.
Incredible.
Yeah, Chuck Berry.
Look at his eyes. Okay, now I gotta cut here because what I want to show you. Come on now. There we go. Here's the copy. We call him the king, but he's the fraud. It's Elvis Presley.
Yes, that's right. Elvis Presley.
I was showing from the waist up.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Listen to the girls. Now, he's not doing anything new. He's doing nothing new. All he's doing is what Chuck had done and what Minstrel guys had done. Nothing new. But this was considered to be very offensive, right? My God, watch Lady Gaga. Right? This is nothing compared to what's on YouTube today.
Well, he did get better as he got older.
Well, he was told to keep it down. He was told to tame himself for this performance.
We couldn't film him below the waist.
Well, the second time, because of this. They right. Look at the way he's standing. He's doing that because Ed Sullivan told him not to shake his hips. So he's kind of being very mellow. Now, what I'd like to do at this point is I would like to then switch it up to James Brown. Because James Brown saw what Elvis did, and James Brown wanted to do something completely different. So here is probably one of the greatest performances, I think, of rock and roll ever, is James Brown at the Tandy Show. It was a performance in, hold on a second. 1964. So October 28, 1964. So as we're watching him, notice what we've seen. We've seen the drums continue, we've seen the djembe continue, we've seen double entendre continue. We need to talk about Rocket 88. We need to get into that. Or Black Snake Moan, for example. Such double entendre isn't funny. And that improvisation. Every time someone comes along and does something different, something new is created. And look like they're patting him on the back. It's okay, James. It's okay. Oh, he's just getting started. Lady Gaga ain't got nothing on him. Gotta have the coat. Gotta have the coat. little bit. Look at some serious dancing here. Check this out. Okay, as you're watching him go crazy. Now, it's important to note that while James Brown is doing his thing, don't forget who's getting all the publicity, who's getting all the popularity. Elvis. Well, Elvis, and you can't forget about oh, thank you. Can't forget about those British lads. All right,
the Beatles. All of them.
The Beatles.
How's working man in show business? Right, so you got the Beatles, you have all the 60s rock and roll bands, right? So what do they have to do? They've got to create something different, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave you with where we are at this point in terms of music. Be careful, there is some bad language.
Personal friends of mine, the LAPD. For every cop that's ever taken advantage of somebody.
Mixed company. There we go. This is where we are today, ladies and gentlemen. Every time the white American has done something with music and created something new, what did they do? They went over the top. And that's what this is. This is called Cop Killer. Do I like this kind of music? No, but it makes a point. What's the point? The point is that every time a certain type of music has become popular, every time white America has sort of taken over that music and made that music popular, what do the African American do? They create something new, something unique.
Like a competition.
It is a competition. But who's the one doing all the creating? The African American. Why? Because they were forced to create as slaves. So for some reason, there's an innate desire and a need to create new forms of culture. Now, I believe the library closes in like 15 minutes. Yes. So what I'd like to do is open up to any questions, if anybody has any questions about anything that I've tried to scratch the surface with today. Oh my God.
Really good.
I thought that was awesome. Thank you very much.
Was there a point? I mean, were they trying to pass information on to
Absolutely.
others?
The fall of drinking gourd, they would drink that. They would sing that song working in the fields so that because some slaves had jobs of transporting goods from plantation to plantation. So they would hear that song, and what could they do? They could then sing it to the next plantation, and it would spread. So yes, they sang those songs out loud so they would spread. Absolutely correct. And once again, there's a whole, all the songs are listed here if you're interested in knowing what the pieces were.
I would like to say,
yeah.
very interesting. I was born and raised in the South. I'm from Alabama, and
hope I got a few things right.
Yes, you did.
Okay, good.
Yeah. But it was really interesting when you talked about the purpose of the singing and everything. Because I heard that, you know, as a child growing up, my great grandfather was a slave, you know, and so it was really interesting. I have to say that I really enjoyed it.
Well, thank you. And this music is great. I mean, I'm not so big a fan of the hip-hop or rap music, but James Brown, what a way to end, because he's just so fantastic, so fantastic. So thank you very much. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.